Hi everybody and welcome to Social Psychology at Craven College. My name is Jessica Cornthwaite and I am the Programme Manager for Health, Science and Access. And so as part of that, social psychology falls within my remit. I'm also a trained psychology and sociology tutor, so I like to get involved in the social psychology as much as I possibly can. I wanted today to just introduce you to a fun activity that you could take part in over the summer period in order to prepare you for some level of understanding about what social psychology has to offer. And I decided to focus on something in psychology. So in psychology, there are numerous different theories about how we come to be who we are. Some people think that we're born with genes that give us our personality and our behaviours, whereas other people in psychology think that we're born with a mind that is a blank slate. They call this tabula rasa, and that's the theory that I'm going to focus on today. The perspective itself that looks at this theory is called behaviourism, and the particular aspect of behaviourism that I want to focus on is classical conditioning. So, way back when, a guy called Pavlov was looking at salivation in dogs, and he discovered that as he was walking towards the dogs to feed them, they started to salivate. And he started to think, why is this? What is it about these dogs that's making them salivate just to the sound of my footsteps? And after much pondering and scientific investigation, he came to realise that they weren't salivating to the sound of his footsteps. His footsteps weren't food. What they were salivating to was the association of his footsteps with the food that he was about to give them. So this led him to investigate it a little bit more. So we got some dogs, cruelly, as was done way back then, before ethical guidelines were as strong as they are. And then he trained them to salivate to the sound of a bell. So what Pavlov would do would be present the dogs with food and ring a bell at the same time. Present the dogs with food again and ring a bell at the same time. He would do this over and over and over again, and he termed it pairing. And then after a while, he just rang the bell, and he found that the dogs salivated just to the sound of the bell because they associated it with food. He changed this as well to numerous other stimuli, and he found that every single time he could program the dogs to salivate, slava you might know it as, to virtually any stimuli as long as he paired that stimuli with food in the first instance. This is known as classical conditioning and is also understood as learning by association. Now these are dogs. And psychologists at the time thought, well, fantastic, mate, you've made dogs salivate to the sound of a bell, so what? Do humans respond in the same way? So some people called Watson and Rayner, equally, if not more unethically, got their hands on a little baby, known now as little Albert. And they tested little Albert, first of all, to check if he had any fears or phobias, and they found that he didn't really. And so they decided they wanted to induce a fear or a phobia into him. So they gave him a white rat and they made a bang behind his head. The only thing that little Albert had shown that he was frightened of before this experiment started was the sound of a loud bang behind his head. Because like salivation, it's a reflex response. It's something that we do automatically. Loud bangs make us jump. It's probably there within our evolution in order to protect us. So they got little Albert, gave him the white rat, bang behind his head. Little Albert cried. Gave him the white rat again, bang behind his head. Little Albert cried again. They paired this, so they did both things together repeatedly over a period of time. And then eventually, they just gave little Albert the white rat. Now bear in mind, little Albert hadn't been scared of the white rat before this experiment started. But as soon as they gave little Albert the white rat after the pairings, he showed a fear response. He responded in exactly the same way as if the bang was accompanying it, just like Pavlov's dogs did to his footsteps and to the sound of bells and to the sounds of different chimes or stimuli. Little Albert associated the rat with a bang. Now, behaviourists say this is the most basic form of learning, and a lot of the ways that we behave at the moment, we've picked up through learned associations through our past. And so if this is true, I task you to see if you can create some learned associations, some paired associations in people who are around you. Now, before I give you the task, I want you just to think about ethics. So in psychology, we are really strongly bound by ethics. So we're tasked as psychologists to do no harm. We must protect our participants from psychological harm at all times. And as a general rule, people in any psychological research should not be exposed to any more harm than they would appreciate or experience to appreciate in their everyday lives. So think about what you're classically conditioning somebody to do. There's a YouTube clip, if you just put in YouTube classical conditioning examples, of a guy who presses a buzzer and then shoots his mate with a Nerf gun. He does it repeatedly, buzzer, shoot, buzzer, shoot, buzzer, shoot. And then eventually he can just press the buzzer and his roommate flinches because his roommate associates the noise of that buzzer, the sound of the buzzer, with his irritating roommate shooting him with a Nerf gun through covers in order to keep him safe, obviously, in order to protect him from ethics. So as you're thinking about something to do, make sure you're thinking about this protection from harm. You can train somebody to make any associations that you want to, as long as you pair them over time and appropriately. But as a psychologist, it is your responsibility to make sure you protect people from harm. Bearing this in mind, I've classically conditioned my daughter. So I go, psst, and she jumps. Because over the past 2 weeks, in preparation for this video, I've been trying to classically condition my daughter to fear the sound psst, in the same way many pet owners classically condition their cats to fear the sound psst. So I say to my daughter, who's 21, psst, and she jumps because I have been repeatedly pairing that sound with flicking her. Ideally, I flick her on her ear if she's within close enough proximity, but sometimes she isn't that close, so I just flick her on her arm or her shoulder or anywhere I can get to, really. She's finding me particularly irritating, but it works. I'll see if I can come and get her to show you. Ella? I'm just making a video for my new social psychology students. Could you come and say hello, please? I just want to outline who my family are so they get to understand who I am as their teacher.
Don't flick me!
So as you'll see, it works. Have fun classically conditioning people amongst your friends and family. Make sure you stay safe and keep them safe, and we really look forward to meeting you in September. Bye.